live, so. Live.
Yes.
You can't leave your voice.
Welcome everybody. Oh, sorry. Hello, thanks for coming out. It's so rainy and wet and cold. Yeah, we're in here and we're warm. We've got pizza, we have beverages. So if you're watching the live stream, you're missing out on the pizza. I think that he and Jeremy even got some deluxe slices too, so that's really just wow. Chef's kiss. Thank you, Ian and Jeremy. We like to start at CalArts by recognizing and acknowledging the first people of this ancestral and unceded territory of the Chaglayapitam, the people of Chaglayanga, whose present-day descendants are citizens of the Fernandinho and Avian Band of Mission Indians, a land that is now occupied by our main campus. We honor their elders, past and present, and their descendants. We recognize that the tribe is still here, and we are committed to lifting up their stories, culture, and community. Mischief, too. I'm really excited to welcome Hiron Ennes here today. Hiron Ennes is a British Fantasy Award-winning and World Fantasy Award-nominated author of the two books you see behind me, Leech, and most recently, The Works of Vermin, which was that
October 14th.
October 14th. Is
It's
really?
a neonate.
It's a neonate. In their spare time, Hiron is a musician, a mad doctor, and an avid dog petter, so watch out, Mischief. They're a writer of whom Gillian Flynn says, yes, Gillian Flynn says she would follow this writer anywhere.
All right.
A Star Review and Library Journal calls Leech an amalgam of multiple genres that mutates into something truly unique. Ennis blends several different genres, including science fiction, post-apocalyptic fiction, gothic horror, and body horror, turning them into a delightfully original work that explores multiple themes, including identity and autonomy. And then Tasman Muir calls Leech a wonderful new entry to gothic science fiction, impeccably clever and atmospheric. Think Wuthering Heights with worms. We were just talking about it. Maybe less Wuthering Heights than actually Jane Eyre.
So much more Jane Eyre than whatever.
Right? Yeah, there is fire in a mansion. There's someone trapped up in the top of a crazy hidden wife. And then Christopher Bowman calls Ennis's latest work, The Works of Vermin, right here, a brilliant shape-shifting puzzle box of a book, which Johnny Compton describes as a brilliant blend of intense intrigue and a fantastically macabre. Please help me in welcoming Hiron Ennes.
Thanks for having me, everyone, but especially Mischief. I've been told I must read, so read I shall. I'm going to read a couple of things. I'm going to read the first chapter of Leech, which is my favorite chapter, and then I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from the Works of Vermin because I have an obligation to promote my new book, and this is how it goes. All right, so. The sight of this old train car saddens me, though I can't quite articulate why. There's something unnameable about the rattling of the empty wooden seats, so like the pews of a deserted church, that puts me in a lonely humor. It is an unusual feeling, since I've never in my life been alone. Jagged mountains rise and fall outside the window, dotted with white trees and the occasional lodge long since abandoned to the wild. It has been 1 hour and 42 minutes since the last snow-shrouded sign of civilization crawled across the landscape, and it will be 54 minutes before the next appears. This is not accounting for delays, accidents, breakdowns, avalanches, or seismically induced derailments. The only other occupant of the car is a young boy, bundled so heavily he resembles a sphere more than a child. He sits alone because he's failed to follow his mother up the train at the penultimate stop, but he does not appear distressed. The conductor had promised to deposit him at the correct station on the return south, and he shrugged in reply, biting shyly at the forefinger of his one-cheek glove. The train stops twice so workers can clear the snow from the tracks, adding, according to my timepiece, 41 minutes to the journey. It is not so deep into winter that a delay will prove fatal, but I will arrive on the dangerous side of dusk. Perhaps that is for the better. The man I plan to meet at the station is not likely to be punctual, especially since he doesn't expect me. He may not even know of the death that brings me north. The snow-laden firs bow their heads and shed motes of light as the sun slips between two western peaks. The boy squints out the window, drawing intricate outlines of mountains in his condensed breath and wiping them away with equal enthusiasm. I study him at play, noting his movement and development, his flushed cheeks, his herpetic sores at the corner of his mouth. He is a charming creature. He meets my gaze and reddens, balling his hand in the palm of his four-fingered right glove. I suspect come nighttime the ride will only get colder, so I remove my own gloves and offer him a trade. Wordlessly, he compares them to his current pair. He slips his hand inside and, finding them to be close enough to his own size, accepts. The train once again bellows and lurches. His complacent smile reveals dark gaps of missing teeth. He spends the rest of the trip removing the gloves, twisting the fingers in knots, untwisting, reversing, and wearing them again. By the time my destination comes into view, he is chewing away at one other forefinger. The train winds to a stop. As I bid farewell to the child, I suddenly long to trade places with him as easily as we have traded gloves. I would like to ride back south in his place, to assume his unworried demeanor, to occupy the capricious brain developing in his skull. Perhaps one day I will. But for now, I must address my own mind. I must follow the eddies of darkness where the flow of my thoughts have been interrupted, where a gap has opened and swallowed a portion of my memory. Only a corpse is left, a body I should have seen die, but whose agonal moments slipped past with nothing but a tense, vague unsettlement. I collect my things and disembark. Workmen drag several dozen boxes of supplies through the snow, and I follow their tracks to the three-walled shack that passes for a railway station. The shelter offers little respite from the cold, and I shiver between crates and containers, massaging a numb forefinger and curling my frozen toes in their inadequate shoes. The train reverses course, black smoke billowing in its wake, and disappears back into the maze of mountains. Silence falls with the dusk, and the encroaching shadows color the snow in endless, featureless blue. Baker arrives with predictable lateness in his usual manner, bathed in exhaust of his snow-treading vehicle, balancing side saddle on a foam-cone seat, with a small branch of pine, a poor substitute for the cigarillos he has vowed to eschew, poking aslant from his frosty beard. At his back creaks a sled of his own making, a rickety contraption of wood and metal on which he hauls supplies between the station and the town. Suppressing an unexpected pinch of anxiety, I watch him rattle up to the shack, smoke wheezing from the machine's tailpipe. I raise a hand. Baker slides from the seat. He looks to his left and his right, as if hoping to find someone who can explain my presence. He, of course, doesn't recognize me. "You're one of the Institute, I suppose," he says. I nod. "Hell of a fast arrival. Been but 2 days back the chateau sent the letter." He speaks hard Franco, and though this young tongue of mine is unused to its phonemes, I am familiar with the language. Just an thought, or never mind, I'm Baker. I pretend I do not already know. He extends his hand, and I take it. "You lost a finger there," he says. "Can acquire some more gloves in town if far. Any luggage?" "No." He raises a bushy eyebrow. "Call in the back. I can come tomorrow for these wild animals they steal in the barrens and force them while we're away." He pats a crate with a furred glove and motions for me to climb into the dilapidated sled. When I'm safely inside, he blows 2 pillars of smoky condensed breath from his nostrils and starts the engine. I squint at the rusted track of the machine as it flings oil-stained snow, grooves glinting like knives, and I try not to imagine a body crushed under it, tangled and torn beyond recognition. I know better than to conjure such thoughts, but phobias, like immunities, are acquired early and are difficult to erase. Despite logical input from a conscious mind, a body fears what it fears. The ride is unpleasant, but it is not long. In a few minutes, an orchard of smokestacks appears beyond the treetops, ringed by the slanted tin roofs of miners' homes. The pines part, ushering us through a corridor of crooked stone buildings braced with ice. We wind through snowy streets, past half-buried warehouses, past belching chimneys and pumping turbines that are denied sleep even in the dead of winter, and up the slope of a looming hillside. At its crest, we cough to a halt before a wrought iron gate. 2 men emerge from the crumbling guard's hut, one wielding a shovel and the other a rifle. They exchange a few words, glancing at me, then force the gate open on hinges rigid with cold. The taller one waves us in, gun dangling from his shoulder like a broken limb, and we sputter into the unkempt, frozen grounds of the Chateau de Riviera. Of 100 windows, only a dozen are lit. The chateau, likely a sister to the luxury hotels that once dotted these mountains, has mostly crumbled into darkness, its outer wings abandoned to the elements or repurposed to house animals in winter. Only the central tower, a looming, crooked thing, is alive tonight. It arcs over us as if bending to allow the single eye of the highest window, the Baron's, of course, to scrutinize approaching visitors. Bathed in the weak light of the manor, the baker leads me up the snowy steps to the oak doors. He raps thrice, and in a blur of marmot furred coat retreats to his vehicle. The engine roars, the gears scream, and he disappears into the dusk. I knock twice more before the maid answers. She narrows her eyes at my inadequate topcoat and unfamiliar face, and wordlessly invites me out of the cold. Sylvie is her name, but she will introduce herself to me later, after I have proven trustworthy. For now, she smiles and curtsies and bids me wait under the jade dome of the foyer. I remove my hat and count the cracks running through the stone to pass the time, but only reach 93 before she returns to present me with the Baron de Verdura's only son, Didier. He barely resembles himself. His face seems to have withered in my short absence, and behind the cracked glass of his pince-nez, his eyes are colored with fatigue. You must be the replacement, he says. I didn't think you'd come for another few days at least, at this time of evening. Sweet as hell, I hope you didn't walk up from the station. Baker was kind enough to escort me, I said. Had I known you'd arrive so quickly, I'd sent someone to retrieve you. Certainly well before nightfall. He attempts, valiantly, to smile. You must be exhausted. I'll have something hot made for you. Come and rest in the salon. I'll pour you a drink. I peel off my coat and gloves, dropping them into Sylvie's outstretched arms. I would prefer to see the body first. Surely that can wait. I'm afraid not, sir. Didier's eyes glance over mine, probing for the reasoning behind my urgency, but I have nothing to offer him. Somehow, I know even less than he does. If that is what you wish, he says. We've laid him out in the cold, so well, you're no doubt familiar with the process of decay. I am. Didier lifts the oil lamp from its sconce and bids me follow, unaware that I have traveled these halls for years. He guides me through the distal veins of the chateau, through darkness thickened with cobwebs and dust. I'll get the houseboy to bring you his tools if you want to open him up. Didier struggles with the lock for a moment, but with his wound, it's not hard to guess how he died. I don't remember a wound of any sort. Regardless, I would still very much appreciate the tools. Didier nods and pushes the door open in the way of freezing air. We step into what may have been once part of a kitchen, but now serves as meat storage. Legs, torso, strips and mounds of venison and pork hang from hooks in varying states of disassembly. Steel bars bend across crumbling sections of wall, keeping any wandering carnivores, including hungry townsfolk, from worming their way in. On an iron butcher's table, supine and blue with cold, lies a body familiar to me. At the sight of its sunken face and the dark puncture wound on its neck, a multitude of voices echoes in my mind, some worried, others calm, all rational. 100 mouths whisper twice as many questions, and for a moment, not the first in my life, though it is rare, I am at a complete loss. Who's responsible for this? I ask. I have no idea, Didier replies. He lingers by the door, eyes averted. Nobody had anything against him except my father, perhaps, but he has something against everyone. He can barely get out of bed to eat, much less drive a scalpel into someone's throat. I can't help but suspect. He pauses. I suspect he did this to himself. I say nothing. I cannot confirm or controvert his theory since I have no recollection of the event. I was not there, and that is what terrifies me. I'll be back in a moment, Didier says, and disappears. I take a breath, quieting all my voices and inspect the corpse's exterior, noting every detail to be stored in my hall of recorded deaths. I observe the blackish toes, the atrophic genitalia, the missing fingernails and molars, all expected signs of the unique condition the body carried in life. There are only two things out of the ordinary: a clean puncture on the anterolateral neck and a series of thin black marks divaricating from both eyelids. The former is clearly the immediate cause of death, but the latter may be an underlying one. I'm mulling over the potential significance of the discolored vessels when Didier returns with the houseboy in tow. The silent young man hands me my bag, then watches intently as I don my gloves and mask. I would like to ask him a few questions, since in my experience, servants often have a better grasp of the goings-on of their masters than the masters themselves, but I know he cannot answer me. I address Didier and say, "Tell me what happened." He fidgets as I peel back an eyelid to examine the blackened conjunctiva. Well, he starts, he fell ill about a week ago, maybe more, influenza or some such, perhaps. We didn't think much of it. I didn't want it either. Strange, he muttered. The body's pupils shine with a disturbing color, but I do not know if it's a result of trauma or a chemical reaction. One voice suggests simple postmortem opacification of the cornea, while another suggests an infection. Images of my books open to the relevant pages appear before me, but I cannot focus on the words at the moment. These eyes are occupied. I found it strange as well, Didier continues. He was the last person I'd expect to see so ill, but he was showing his age of late. He took to bed for a few days. How many? 3, I believe. My father's fit lasted as long. I reach for the memories of the past week. They are filled with nights of blurred, confused malaise, consistent with a seasonal virus. The symptoms are familiar to me and not particularly worrisome. I have been ill before. No human body is impervious to invasion. Time of death, I ask? I'm not sure. Emil, this fellow here, found him in the morning before last at about 6. He was still warm. I glance back at the servant. His dark eyes are fixed on the corpse, wide but dry. He crosses his arms, disgusted as only by one gray hand tightening to a fist. What do you know about these marks? I ask. Didier's gaze falls to the corpse's sunken cheeks, and the color drains from his own. Nothing. His eyes were darkened for a fortnight, maybe. I didn't look closely at them. I presumed he was tired. Each time I came to my father's room, it looked a little worse. With a sound that could turn the hardest of stomachs, I scoop out the body's left eye. It doesn't yield easily, and as I tug it away from the clinging extraocular muscles, a few ropes of dark fluid drip from the discolored sclera, a black hair-like substance that I cannot identify clings to the severed optic nerve. The socket is tangled with the stuff, and it holds fast when I apply my blunt forceps. My mind fills with theories and memories, necrosis, gliomata, masses of hair I sometimes pull from children's stomachs, but each thought dissipates as readily as it appears. Behind me, Didier squirms. Henry does not enjoy sights like these. Even when he ascends the tower to help clean his father's tubes and replace his filters, he can't quite hide his aversion. But he lingers to answer my questions, shuddering with cold and discomfort. Did you notice any uncharacteristic behavior? I asked, prodding a mysterious substance. He acted as if he had a headache and he was shivering quite a bit, but he was not entirely present at the end. He muttered to himself, but he often did that. That sounds correct, I say. Fatigue, myalgia, blurred vision, impaired cognition, and communication are common symptoms of 1,000 non-fatal pathogens. Foolishly, I did not consider the possibility of a more malicious infection. After exploring the optic canal, I managed to grip the growth with the tips of my forceps. It resists at first, but I twist, plucking tiny tendrils from the walls of connective tissue. A substantial part of the thing pulls loose, and the hair is widens, meeting in black confluences toward what must be the body of some sort of organism. With a soft popping sound, I pull it from the bone, past the socket, and into the cold air. A muffled gasp escapes Didier's throat, then another, quieter exhalation tumbles from the meal. A container, please, I say, as dangling black offshoots twitch at the end of my forceps. The servant fishes a thin file from my bag, angling it with mercifully steady hands as I place the creature inside. By the time I secure a lid over the glass and remove my gloves, it is already dead. Voices spell out caution and curiosity in equal measure. Some propose the hair-like processes are fungal hyphae, others suggest tactile flagella. Some others are unsure, turning the pages of 1,000 biological texts as they scour the breadth of my knowledge. All, however, spiral toward a similar terrifying conclusion. It appears I have a competitor. Okay, time to torture you with more creepy crawlies. That was Leech Soft Sci-Fi Gothic Novel. Book 2 is called Books of Vermin. It's way more lush, more urban. There are 2 different storylines that run parallel to each other and they meet about 2/3 of the way through the book. The first narrative follows an exterminator named Guy who has a very tough job in a city where pests grow to wild proportions. So it's a little more of a monster hunting gig than it is an extermination job. And the second narrative follows a perfumer from the highest echelons of society called Aster, who is the private scent maker for the city's military leader, essentially. And to be someone's perfumer is somewhere between being like a personal stylist and also the chemical weapons expert. So she also has a very interesting job. So the first part is when we were introduced to what functions, at least in the beginning, as a kind of main antagonist of the book, which is a giant centipede. So let's get centipedal, guys. Guy coughs, rattles his most troublesome filter, and lifts his torch to the alcove. It's the width of his apartment, crawling with at least a dozen familiar species. Most are benign, the ubiquitous Whittleston termite, bushels of devil vine, spore-spraying blasphemous, a few chimera millipedes scurry among them, dripping with psychotropic toxin. It's an ugly infestation for sure, but not ugly enough to lose his eyes on it. Apologies, gentlemen, he mutters. He adjusts the stops on his cannulas, phosphates for the millipedes, holy water for the devil vine, a dash of neem for life, and sweeps his nozzle over the swarm. As the alchemical cloud swallows the recess, his victims dive for cracks, releasing a chorus of squeaks. He shrugs off a shiver. 4 years in this business, and he still flinches at the suffering of pests. Adults, larvae, plant, animal, fungus, all the usual hybrids of each, he leaves nothing untouched. Down to the last egg, Herr Borscht likes to holler into the dark, sap-powered announcement system, usually at night, and usually after enjoying a few glasses of Doutrin 88 at his desk. No son of my father leaves a job unfinished. As the swarm thins, the recess takes shape in his torchlight, a diorama of rotting splinters and fungus. Guy replaces his nozzle, allowing the fumigant to disperse, and slides into the alcove. Among the sewer fox droppings and silver frass, he finds an abundance of nesting materials. Discarded newspaper, moth-eaten textiles, the small marble likeness of the saint, face cracked and scraped as if by teeth. He supposes the cavern may have once been a refuge for a mad prophet, an escapee from stranglery. A shadow sweeps across his vision. He turns to the farthest wall of the alcove, adjusting his nozzle to clear whatever remains of the swarm that stays his hand. The wall is moving, not with the rustling of 1,000 pests, but a synchronous lurch. His stomach turns when he pieces together that he is not looking at many tiny movements, but a single large one. Segments of an exoskeleton roll by him, slowly at first, like the windowless cars of a departing train. Chest tight, feet tethered, he stares at what he is increasingly sure will be his abrupt end. The centipedal body unfurls, impossibly long, impossibly armed. Turga loosen along a spinous chain, each large enough to shield a warhorse. A pair of thick legs appears, then another, and another, and another. Bristles spiral along every surface, an uncanny carpet of iridescence rippling from the tip of its tail to its dark, eyeless head. 2 kinked antennae twitch as the creature turns toward him, segment by segment. Its face opens. A black slit appears at the center and ripples agape, pulled apart by a stretching ring of mandibles. Mucus slings between the rims of its mouth, an inverted tunnel terminating in a round void of a throat. Something like breath wheezes through it, and Guy hears the first tremolo of the overture to Larbella. His gasp unsticks from his lungs. His legs snap into motion, and he stumbles toward the open shaft, raising his pesticide nozzle and squeezing open the cannulas with shaking hands. The creature follows, weaving between fungal stalks and broken porcelain. From the depths of its face funnel, a long tongue unfolds, or something like a tongue, barbed and dripping and thick as his arm. It spirals toward him, unfurling from a base slit with glands, too close, too clear in the sputtering light of his dropped torch. The canister thumps into his emergency barrel just as his heel finds the lip of the fissure. The soft rock gives under his weight, and he tips into empty air. His nozzle cracks, and a canister spins toward the creature, swallowing the alcove in sulfur. The dark streak whips through the haze. Something snaps taut at his temple, his rope, a respirator tubule, the skin of his ear. Pain shoots across his face, and a high-pitched ring vibrates down his jaw to the back of his neck, resonant as a struck chord. Fumigants flood his mask, burning his lips, his mouth, his scrunched eyes. There's a moment of stillness as he falls, inverted and weightless. Then he swings, and his back meets something hard. Blind, deafened, he rolls to a stop and gropes for his nozzle, for his knife, for a handhold. He is still groping when a pair of mandibles wraps around him, heaving him limp and helpless into the solid warmth of a mouth. All right. Let's relax a little on the perfume lands now. All right, so this is the second narrative from the Master's POV. They say all stories begin with a dead man. That's the phrase, isn't it? Every good show begins with a death and ends with a marriage. It's how the great dramatist Alfhawker puts it, or at least the people who confidently misquote him. And there really isn't a worthy distinction between the two. No one has died yet, at least not in Astor's sightline, though she can barely see past her own false lashes. The broad amber windows of the judicial palace trap steam like a greenhouse, and the civilian gallery is swollen with bodies. Ladies fan themselves with ginkgo leaves, diffusing their pheromonal perfumes, while their dates wipe fog from opera glasses. As the accused is brought before the tribunal, panting under a hood heavy with sweat, the high magistrate lifts his gavel to scratch at a glistening age spot. Even the floor has begun to perspire, oozing dewdrops from the marble roof of the BGS company sigil. If nothing else, someone will die of heat stroke. Astor is here, suffocating alone at the show trial of a hapless stranger, because Elspeth has once again publicly stood her up. Attended by Tilliard's most distinguished magnates and guaranteed to end in a tasteful execution, this is the kind of legal circus at which the Royal Chancellor's portraitist and fiancé would be expected to show her face. That is, Astor supposes, precisely why she hasn't. Elspeth is diligent in upkeeping her reputation for inconstancy. She wouldn't have one stiletto out of a cab before making a diversion of some boy or a cabaret with a decent band or a parade marching down the Rue Petunias with a mist of champagne in its wake. It's her brilliant caprice, after all, that crowns every brushstroke of her paintings, or would if she ever finished one. Astor vows to fill the empty seat beside her with her own diversion, even if she must invent it. The story of a missed adventure is the only arrow that can pierce Elspeth's maddeningly shapely hide. If not remorse, the bitch is at least capable of envy. Unfortunately, the trial chugs along smoothly. The magistrate is hurt, the defense absent, and the accused so thoroughly damned that the only point of contention is his method of execution. A lunar priest steps forward, draped in tinkling pearls, and proposes immolation. A BGS lawyer invokes tradition and suggests he be fed to the palace's carnivorous tulip beds. The audience applauds when a heckler demands that he be dressed in costume and made to fight for a pardon on stage. The condemned himself has little to say, because the overeager captain of the guard has already cut out his tongue. His is no great tale lost. His approach is uninspired, infiltrate the waitstaff with state luncheon. His weapon of choice cliched, lead 7-shot pistol. Gun in one hand and food of salmon and mineral water in the other, he strode up to the city's most decorated general and discharged 2 bullets directly into the panoply of medals overlying his heart. He left no manifesto, no detailed plan. Whether the assailant is a stillborn revolutionary, a madman, or an assassin hired by someone in the cabinet, it won't change his fate. The only thing that might is the martial revenant's mood. As always, he sits above the judiciary with his bony headpiece, exuding a scent worthy of the arbiter of the court. It's a strong concoction, but Astor knows him well enough to see an aura of contempt ripple through his veneer. He's still sore in the ribs, and Astor can hardly blame him. He was only shot last week. The judges deliberate. The gallery fills with whispers. Clerks pass by to refill wine glasses and offer cigars. The marshal's frown suggests the execution will not be swift, and the magistrate's grin suggests it will not be painless. Astor guesses it'll be some sort of dismemberment, but she doesn't have the heart to place a bet with the bookmaker. She sighs, curls her toes in her pumps, and nearly jumps from her skin when she sees the empty seat beside her has been suddenly filled. The man is a stranger, dark and lean, his long profile made longer by a pretty, dated top hat. His fashioned legs by nearly 2 decades, but somehow this only accentuates that kind of handsome and ambiguous agelessness most often seen in men straddling 30. His vest is garishly embroidered, his rapier antique, and his boutonniere, a pair of flared parrot's wings, gives the impression of a bird just crashed into a storefront window. There's something unnerving about him, something uncomfortably present, as a living man might appear to a ghost. Uneasy but pleased, Astor proffers reply. The star of Avost, she says, suddenly aware of an unscratchable patch of sweat between her breasts. Mallory. He releases her hand, and she pins down the source of her unease. He is devoid of any hint of perfume. No suggestion of lavender or beetlewort, no pure scents, no cheap knockoffs. Oddly enough, it seems that the man that she perceives is precisely the man who sits beside her. Be damned, she mutters, hoping her own perfume masks her tone. What was that? He tilts his ear, hidden under sleek curls, not quite black, not quite brown. I said you're a little late for the trial. I know, he says, but not too late for the sentence. She wonders if he's here via the Tourism Bureau, which insists on directing visitors toward the palace, ever failing to mention one is as likely to stumble into a firing squad as a parade. Perhaps he's a political sightseer, a Margrave, an investor hoping to watch the regime change the leaves. He must know that for the past 17 years, all of them have looked sorely disappointed. I meant to come earlier, he says, dabbing at a rip in his glove, but I was hit by a car on the way over. It takes Astor a moment to process the words, oh, 3 wheels and a turret. His smile widens off kilter as the rest of him. Fortunately, I was hit by the wheels and not the turret. Really, Astor narrows her eyes, trying to tease a thread of untruth from his words. She can't read him. He's too flat-scented. A bell rings. The marshal waves away a flock of adjudicators, then stubs out his cigar on a nearby Monstera leaf. Boots shining with dew, he steps forward and announces the sentence. Strangulation accompanied by string quartet. A profound act of mercy compared to the brass band. Justice will be served only before the hors d'oeuvres. Thanks, guys.
Flat sentence. I mean.
Well, thank you. Did I go over time?
No, you're great. I would want it to be strengthened to a percussion ensemble.
Yes, okay. Steve Reich, I would die to that. I would die to, who's a good percussionist? I remember Andy, I think it's Andy Pico. I saw him at the Oregon Film. He plays the steel drum, but he has these amazing, polyrhythmic concertos that are, I would definitely, whatever method of execution, I would be so happy to die with those. They're so good. Yeah. Did you raise your hand?
I did, yeah. I have a question. Having now heard you reread the first chapter of Bleach, and we talked about it earlier in class, you said that the first chapter was the first thing that you wrote initially before you had even decided it would be a novel. How much, though, did it get rewritten, or is it very close to the same? It seems that there's a whole lot of things I'm noticing now that I didn't notice before, now that I know how it ends. And I'm wondering, was a lot of that there for you initially, or is this something that you had to go back and rethink a lot of?
Surprisingly, I didn't really change the first chapter. Because I think so the reason I wrote the first chapter was sort of as an audition to this workshop, and I didn't know there would be a rest of the novel. But I think that all of the ideas and perspectives that were important for me that I knew might be in the novel should this thing be accepted were in the first chapter, and I sort of made sure of that. So the things in the first, a lot of things in the first chapter got fleshed out later, but I don't really think a lot of it changed. It was pretty much structurally the same. It began the same way, it ended the same way. It had the same autopsy scene. I think just when editing came around, it was just a few tweaks here and there. But generally, it's the same chapter now as it was before, which I find surprising, honestly. Yeah.
In class, you mentioned Emil as a Watson, which was really interesting. Do you have a favorite Sherlock Holmes?
No. I don't really think I do. I was kind of like I said, I was sort of a Dupin stan, because I was really into Poe, and I'm so superior to Sherlock Holmes, and so I never I've read a couple of them, but I actually haven't read the whole canon, so I don't think I can rightfully choose a favorite Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
I love the amount of granular detail you gave to the body horror. Well, even just I'm very much a body horror guy. I love going into that sort of detail, but the amount that you went into, even utilizing medical terms and stuff, I was damn, that's really good. But what I was wondering is I have this question for myself, so I'm gonna ask you, when do you know when to push into the body horror and get deeper into it? And how granular of a detail, like how intense do you know?
Yeah, so I have a very, very, very high threshold for disgust.
Yes.
And I can read anything or write about anything or watch anything, and I'm usually okay. So I rely on external sources a lot. Like, I think it was my agent originally who was like, this is too gross, turn it down. And I do what he tells me. But I do a lot of autopsies in my day job, so like I'm elbow deep in corpses a lot, and none of that really bugs me. So I don't really have a good gauge of where other people who don't do this kind of stuff for a living might draw a line. So I do heavily rely on the normal people in my life to be like, Hiron, do you not need to know what the bile feels like between your fingers? That's like, no one wants to know that. Okay, thank you.
Actually, I do.
It's goopy. Bile is my least favorite bodily fluid.
Which is your favorite?
I feel like the context of, like,
Yeah.
you need to rely on the context of that. I love serum because you can do a lot with it. I think like serum is like a really reliable and good body fluid from the perspective of like, oh, I have a question and I need to answer it. But it's also one of the least gross. So maybe I'll go with serum. Vitreous humor is also yeah, what's up?
This is just a personal, have you ever been to Body Worlds?
Yeah, when I was like 5 or something, and it changed my life.
Changed my life.
I loved it so much.
So good.
Yeah, I took the little book home, so I was like the kid with the Body Worlds book, with just pictures of cadavers. And now this
It's
is
so
what
like
I
a wallpaper.
Yeah, this is what you turn out to be.
So, you talked to us in class a bit about how Poe is so deep in you, it's sort of like the DNA, and sort of like, we could see that in Leech, like,
Yeah.
But with works of Berman, like, I've just started reading it and loving it, and then hearing the excerpts that you read, it seems like a very different, like, set of colors, different framework. So, I don't know, can you say some more about that? I'm like, I love this, I love the world building of it, but I also love this humor that comes in with like the sort of like mechanisms and infrastructure you're talking about, like delivery of sense. And then that opening scene that you have where he's battling the centipede, the closest thing I think of in my head is like Brazil, like Robert De Niro, like King Father is coming in. It seems kind of like almost like parody of like a extermination case.
Yeah, like Leech is a lot more subdued than Vermin. I kind of like Ham. I like Vermin is maximalist, and I will say that without shame. A lot of Vermin is actually inspired by opera, and the opera itself, like as a cultural and artistic like infrastructure in the city is really important, and so like Berman takes a lot of inspiration from like over the top musical theater type stuff. So a lot of beats are taken straight from operas. Like there's bohemian lifestyles, there's revolutions, there's a fucked up love triangle, there's Astor's constantly coughing because she's a consumptive of heroin. There's just a lot of stuff that is taken from that world, and so I sell Vermin as like a piece of Baroque theater, kind of just like condensed into a couple of hundred pages. And so I think like a lot of the prose in Vermin, a lot of the beats of Vermin are kind of like over the top and maximalist, and also the ways that the characters deal with the things that they see in life are seen, like they're like processed through their knowledge of stories and canon and operatic canon specifically. So Guy the Exterminator, he used to work as an usher in the opera, and so he has these memories of all these operas that he's seen. And when he explains things that happen to him, to his little sister, he'll like do it in terms of like how archetypes on the stage interact and stuff like that. And so that I actually, like I was talking to you earlier about Sophia Samatar and her fantasy novel Stranger in Wandria, where the main character is so like over literate and such a book nerd that everything he encounters in life, he's like, I've got a quote for that. I've got a poem I read about that. I've got this piece of literature that's like in my mind that I use to process what I'm seeing here. And that is all in communication with this like huge non-existent fantastical literary canon that she has. And Vermin tries to do the same thing but with opera essentially. So it's all dramatic and theatrical. Yeah.
Can I ask, this is a very simple question, but why bugs? What is it about bugs that's like so fascinating?
I don't know. I'm into bugs and guts and dirt and music.
Yeah.
I feel like the centipede in particular was inspired by living in a house in medical school that had like a big crack in the middle of it. And it was about yay big, so it was like a centimeter. And I would try to like caulk it and it would like swallow the caulk. And centipedes would crawl out of this crack intermittently and just like end up in our bathtub. I was like thinking about bugs a lot while I was writing this. And I think that to be more sophisticated about it, it probably was actually the centipede crack that inspired me to write about bugs. But if I need to justify that to readers, I would say Vermin is operatic, theatrical. People take on and lose roles, jobs, all these different roles that they play in society, and there's sort of like metamorphosis is kind of like an underlying theme in it. That's what I would say, but it might just be the centipede crack. Like I was thinking about centipedes all the time. They were living with me.
The bugs have never worked.
What kind of centipede?
And in my house?
Yeah,
Oh, just regular house centipedes. We don't have like scolopendra coming up. With like, yeah, I know, I wish. I would consider that. No, that would be a compliment. Plus, they're like easier to find, so like they don't hide from you as well as just like a regular house centipede. Because like you don't know where the fuck that thing is. It could be anywhere.
I like
You've got a centipede that's like this big. It crawls and it makes noise. It's like clacking. Like okay, I know where that centipede is. I know like not to sit in that corner now because that's where the centipede's hanging out.
Do you ever get them in your shoes?
No, I've never had a shoe centipede. I check my shoes though.
I noticed, I've been thinking about the insects too, and I've been thinking about what I like very much is sort of the exoskeleton of the centipede as it gets revealed, and with the same kind of like mechanical language as the kind of mechanical structure of its body, like the segmented structure of its body. And then in the autopsy scene in which it wasn't about an exoskeleton, it was about an interior, right? An interior that we do not know until we get there. And then, you know, it's not what we expect. And I wonder if the humans versus the monsters in the work, do the humans have sort of an interiority and a psychology that is different from the kind of exteriority, right, of the monsters, the presence of the horrible thing?
Yes, in all respects, in both books, in all cases, basically. Like, I feel like contradictions between people's interiority and what they express and also what is expected of them are, I write about that a lot, sort of inadvertently, because I feel like that's a lot where like the internal tension for my characters comes from is that contradiction specifically. And maybe I just like fall into bugs and creepy crawlies because that sort of is the most convenient way to express that. And I'm just learning this about myself in real time. I don't know. Yeah.
Do you write short fiction?
Yeah, I do. You can find me in Weird Horror Magazine and a couple of anthologies. I had a story out, actually it came out a few days ago, Best Eco Fiction of 2024. I have a story in there. Best Weird Fiction of 2024, and then there's this anthology of Canadian fiction called Northern Nights. I'm in there with like, I think Sylvia Marina Garcia's in there, Premi Mohammed's in there. It's just like a bunch of weird, creepy stories from Canadian authors. Those are from Undertow Press. Yeah, but I like short fiction. I don't spend nearly as much time on it as I do novels because I read short fiction a lot less than I do novels, and so I'm like less in that headspace. But I do enjoy a good short story for sure.
I want to go back to opera. So do you?
Yeah, let's always go back to opera.
Did the operas that are referred to in the novel, are they actual operas, or do you invent that as that sort of like event?
Some of them are. Some of them are like there are references to Faust a lot in Vermin. They have sort of like so I wrote Vermin in a way that it could very conceivably, and in my head canon does take place in the same world as Leech. Does it take place in the same place and time? No. But a lot of the operas that are mentioned in Vermin are stories that I think will probably have survived like the turn of cultural apocalypses like over and over and over again. So like, I think every society is going to have like sort of a Faustian story. So there's going to be a Faust opera. There's an opera called Don Giovanni in there, which is like Don Giovanni. Every opera where somebody goes to hell at some point, like it exists in Vermin because those are my favorite. Yeah.
What is your favorite opera?
Okay, so I have a different answer every time I sing an opera, but
Today, what is your?
today my favorite opera is called Hildegard. Have you seen it?
I haven't, but I've heard about it.
I saw it last week at Wallace. Yeah. Did you see it? Oh, okay. I really, really like it because Wallace about gay nuts. And Hildegard von Bingen, who's like this composer polymath. But I feel like the music of the opera was like extremely my shit. It was like a cross between Arvo Pärt and like Joanne Newsom. It was so harp forward, like it was almost like a harp concerto.
Wow.
Musically,
Yeah.
because like everything was led by the harp, but the orchestral bits were so very like they were sort of like minimalist, arpeggiated in the same way like Arvo Pärt is. And so like already I was like in ecstasy, just like sitting, because the composer of librettist is Sarah Kirkbride. I have to look her up again. Actually, someone asked me that question earlier and I wrote it down, so I do have her in my little notebook here. But it was so good. It was like Sarah Kirkland Snyder was the composer of librettist. And it was like kind of like new age and bizarre and just extremely weird, and the music was weird and it was so beautifully done, and the person who played Hildegard was just like 10 out of 10, transportive. I loved it. So right now that is my favorite. Yeah.
You don't have to answer this question, but I'm curious what's next. Are you working on anything?
Yeah, so I did write a third novel, and it's with the acquisitions team at Tor right now. I don't know if they'll say yes. I don't know if it's like, if they're waiting to see like how Vermin does and whatever, like I don't know, the internal mechanisms are chugging away in there, but it's about a horny priest. Which is why like I read The Monk earlier and I'm like, there was one of the thing moments, right? Where like clearly I have been very inspired by this like story of, yeah. But like It was very, very much made for me, and I was talking to another writer, and they're like, I can't believe we just read the manga. I thought you based your own priest book on. I did, I just hadn't read it. I think it was there, like transcending space-time, reading. But it's about a horny priest in the same world as Vernon.
So in the same world as Leech.
Tangentially, it's so much closer to Vernon because it's in like the same valley that the city is in. But it's about this priest who ends up going to seminary because he's too weird for his family and they just want to get rid of him. So they send him to seminary and he becomes like sort of obsessed with these like forbidden rituals, and it's a very like cancel for legalists type like post-Catholic Catholicism deal. Yeah, so he gets hired to help this really rich family conceive an heir because they're like, we need divine intervention for this. And he's like, I'm just horny enough for that. And then he accepts and things go south in wild ways. So it's my favorite thing. I think it's the best thing I've written, and so I don't know if it's publishable. I don't want me to say.
That's publishing.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
No, it's a complicated, but we'll see. Like I honestly don't know. It's being written and all.
You mentioned a lot earlier about things that you didn't read before you wrote that you later realized or watched or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this does have the thing in it.
Yeah.
What stuff did you, what hive mind stories as when you were younger before you wrote this did influence these stories?
I don't know if I can think. So Hiron specifically, I'm not quite sure. I did like Star Trek as a kid, so I'm sure like the board came into it. But there was the Piranha series, which was like it's old. I think it's like in the 80s, but it's like about assassins that work better because they're like live with each other. It's not like this corrupted. And then I did that thing where like I read that's how I went after starting reaching and being oh I should do that. And like I think my influences for Vernon are more forward. Purdue Street Station is one of my favorite books as a teenager, and you can definitely see that in Vernon. I made the same mistake again. Halfway through Vernon, I read the Amber Bree trilogy by Jeff Van Vermeer, and I'm like, oh, it's been done first and better, and I should kill myself. But I should still read it by Vermeer, regardless of the fact that Jeff Van Vermeer did it first and better. So I think like China Miéville was a conscious influence on Vernon, at least. Poe, I think, was a conscious influence. Mervyn Peake as well, like he's sort of like in the backseat of Poe, like where it was so long ago that I read him, he's so ingrained that I don't actually know what I'm repeating. But probably a lot. He's due for a reread. And then I think those are probably the main ones in general. Just because what I write tends to be like weird and semi-fantastical. I think that a lot of the comparisons between Maple and Vandermeer, I accept those. I think those are probably good ones. Yeah.
What do you listen to and what do you play?
Music-wise?
Yeah.
Oh no, you look like a box. Okay, so
Joanna Newsom.
Joanna Newsom constantly all the time. In fact, some Joanna Newsom lyrics end up in my syntax in my books. Like malleable as clay, I think I used like 3 times when she's like fate is malleable as clay and they're just violins. Yeah, so shamelessly. Joanna Newsom is integrated into my DNA deep down, like since 2005. But I listened, so for Leech, I listened to a lot of Parrots because I think that he was very Leechy. For Vermin, I listened to a lot of Arthur Marquez, so a lot of like kind of more jazzy Latin stuff, as well as inevitably Verdi, Puccini, Thais. I had Thais on repeat Everyone hates Thais, but I will stand Thais because it's got a horny monkey. So, and then like Steve Reich and who else? Just a lot of, like, I'm kind of a classical head. I don't really, like, the bands that I listen to are like maybe Typhoon because they're from Oregon and they're very good, but I'm addicted to, I don't know, give me your obscure string quartets and I'll become obsessed with them. Yeah, I was exposed to that early and it's insane. So I can't like talk to people about music in a normal way, because I'm like, oh, this is, like I tried to describe it when I was just someone earlier, and I'm like, yeah, it's like John Anderson, more good kid, it's reach all at once, and they're just like, stop talking to me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Please help us eat all this food.
Take it home.
Or take it home, yeah. And also, don't forget, December 4th is the last.
Oh, yeah.
The fall.
Goodbye.
Very opposite speaker, poets and nonfiction.